Well, hello, happy people. It is that magical hour of 1 o'clock, and we are about ready to get started. So it is always a great thing for me when I was a little sad and I was looking at the roster and I'm like, oh, no one wants to come to my webinar. And now I see everybody popping in and it has made my day. So today, go ahead and I'll go ahead and keep popping your names into that chat window. It is helping me keep track of everyone that's joining us today. I can also see your names popping in on the left. So as you're coming in and joining us, go ahead, let me see who you are, where you're coming to us from. We have people from all over that have started joining us, and I love seeing all of the people that are starting to get into Blackboard. We are going Air Force wide. We have people from all over the Air Force, several different agencies that have started using this system. So welcome everybody. Today we are exploring the magical world of rubrics. Rubrics seem to be that elusive animal that people grumble about. I don't know if maybe they are something that can be a little intimidating because there's several different elements, but they're so important as you move your courses into the online environment. And sorry, I just saw someone say they're from Alaska when I know they're not in Alaska, so it just made me laugh. But anyways, rubrics are so important because as we move your courses to online, we're finding that a lot of times using the multiple choice test is not as effective as we would like it to be. And so we're using more active learning, student-centered activities, but what comes with those is they tend to be a little bit more subjective when it comes to grading. So using rubrics allows us to be more objective in our grading practices, and it allows us to start integrating different types of activities into the online world. The beautiful thing with Blackboard is that it does have a fancy tool that helps you create these rubrics, so you're not having to create them from scratch or try and embed something. You don't have to be a coding wizard in order to use them. So today, I am going to show you how to utilize the Blackboard rubric tool, and let's go ahead into our topics. And we are going to look at how do you attach them to your tasks, as well as how to manage them and edit them after you've already associated them with a certain assignment. So what if you've attached them to an assignment and then suddenly you realize, oh no, I need to change the amount of points, or I need to add a column. I'll show you how to do that. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to take a rubric from one course shell and export it and then import it into another course shell. So say you have a thread discussion in one course and you want to have a rubric, and you already have a rubric created for that. So then you're going to have a thread discussion in another course, and you don't want to have to redo your entire rubric. I'm going to show you how you can take the rubric from the existing course and download it and move it into your new course. So just quick intro, a little bit about me. My name is Monica Garcia. I'm the Online Learning Course Director here at the Keesler Cadre Development Flight. We are rebranding ourselves as Cadre Development because we do service the instructor cadre here at the 81st Training Group. Yes, we have rebranded ourselves from faculty development to cadre development. So we are changing with the times, just like our curriculum. All right, now, because I don't like to talk about myself, I am going to go ahead and move forward. Who here is ready to get started? Are y'all ready to start the party rolling, get moving? Go ahead and type on in. Yes. You're excited about rubrics, right? Yes. You can also use the fun little thumbs up over on the left-hand side. If you don't want to type in, you look on the left-hand side, you see a smiley face. If you click on that, it has some fun little emojis that you can use. Stanley rubric. It could be, if you're ready, if you want to go that route. Okay, rubrics are important components and one of the things I get questions about a ton. All right, so if y'all are ready, we already talked about what we're going to talk about. Now, in your chat window, please type in what are some of the biggest challenges that you all have experienced with creating rubrics. I'd like to know what some people fear. What are your greatest fears about rubrics? Deciding what to measure. Some have not done it in Blackboard yet. Continuity, consistency in grading. Okay. Covering important topics fairly. Okay. Comprehensive enough measurements. That's good. Defining criteria and expectations. All right. Now I'm going to type in, because some of these things we may not be able to cover and answer these with the tool, but I'm going to type in a website that may assist you in kind of giving you some assistance where you might need it. And one thing I will say that I have found in creating rubrics myself is that a lot of times you want to write your instructions first, just like where we write our objectives before we create our tests. A lot of times you're going to want to write your instructions for your assessment and then write your rubric or create your rubric based on the instructions. You want to only measure what you've told them they have to do. So you can then create columns or rows based on what you're telling the student you're expecting them to do for the assignment. So that is always a good baseline of how you can start writing your rubric and kind of go from there. It's going to change as you go through that implementation process. If we're reaching back to Addie, it's going to change, and you may find that you either need to add or subtract some things. So it's an iterative process. It's going to be constantly changing. So don't be afraid to go in and edit it. That's why one of the things I'm going to show you about how you can edit after you've already published it is a great skill to use. Okay, everybody get out your webinar guide, and we're going to get into Blackboard. So give me just a minute. I'm going to start getting the process going. Now, while I'm doing this, I shared the link. Well, I shared the website, rubistar.com. So rubistar.com is the website that I have templates of different rubrics. Yeah, I didn't add the whole HTTP. So my screen sharing is booting up. So while we're doing that, does anyone have any specific questions that they're seeking answers to while we're waiting? I'm sorry, I am still figuring that one out for myself, Brent. Brent asked me what the meaning of life was. I wish I had the answer. All I know is that life is made better by all things chocolate, and wine helps too. 42. Okay, so everybody should see my screen. Can you either give me a thumbs up or type yes in the chat box and let me know if you see that or not? Outstanding. Arthur being different with his smiley face. It'll work for me though. I like smiley faces. And just so all of you know, I am on the AFNet. So if for some reason we do lose connection, do not be afraid. We will all come back, log back in, and I will magically put the two parts together. I've done it in the past. So even if we get cut off, I will just start from where I stopped, and we'll keep on moving. So just know if you lose connection, don't go away, come back, because we're all going to come back in together. Got to put that out there. So here we are going to look and create a rubric. Now, how do you get to your rubric? So obviously, one thing that you're going to need to be in is make sure that your edit mode button is on, because if it's off, it's not going to let you access the course management panel. You also need to have admin rights and be enrolled in the course as an instructor to be able to do all of that. Now, to get to your rubrics tool, and before I say that, just so you understand the process and kind of follow me with what I'm doing, you want to create your rubrics before you try and attach them to your assignments. It's always good to have kind of I won't say generic rubric, but a rubric that is something you can use for multiple assignments. You can have a very specific rubric that is broken down by a process, and we call that an analytic rubric, or you can have a holistic rubric, which actually will look at the process or the product as a whole. So you can create either of those in Blackboard. The Blackboard rubric tool allows you to really create a rubric in any form that you would like to see. Okay, so to navigate to the rubric tool, you're going to go to your course management panel, and you're going to locate your course tools. Hit the little down arrow so it expands your course tools, and you are then going to scroll down until you locate rubrics. Now you're going to see there's several different rubrics that I have loaded here. And this is because I've already kind of moved some rubrics over and from another course, and I will show you exactly how to do this. So a lot of these, you'll notice, say like 2016, well, this course shell was created in 2019. So the date will be when that specific rubric was last edited. All right, so here you're going to see several items at the top, and that say you have create rubric, import rubric, and copy and append rubric. So what we're going to focus on is the create rubric. And if you have your webinar guide, we're focusing on that first topic, which is to create a rubric. You want to give your rubric a name. So for this one, we're going to say we are measuring we'll say an essay. Now, you can put a description so that you can let other instructors know what this rubric is for, or if anyone goes into your course later, what exactly it's going to be measuring if it's a really detailed rubric. But it is not necessary as you're going through and creating it. You're then going to scroll down to where it says rubric detail. And this is where you are going to quite literally create your rubric grid. Now, if you look in your webinar guide on page 2, you're going to see that it outlines and describes what each of these areas are. So for add row, if you have more areas than what are given in the default form, you can add another row to your rubric. You can add as many rows as you want. So if you have like 10 areas of criteria that you need to measure, you can add 7 more rows to your rubric. The sky is the limit in how much you want to measure. So it really does give you the flexibility to measure how much or how detailed you need to be. So all you have to do is add a row, and you'll see it's not labeled. It says it's new row 4. And I'll show you how to edit the title for each of the criteria. Now, if you see that you have a default of 3 columns, and they're already labeled of novice, competent, and proficient. You can change those labels as well, and I'll show you here in a minute how you can do that. So if you want to add a column, you can do that too, but then you say to yourself, man, what if I didn't mean to add that column, I just pressed the wrong button. You decide you need to delete it, you just click your little gray down arrow and you just say delete this column. Easy peasy. All right, so then you have 7 different weights that you can use. So you have percentage, you can have no points, you can have points, a point range. So maybe you want to have a certain scale where you don't want to just have a flat rate. You want to allow the person grading to be able to kind of determine on a scale how well the student did in that area. So you can have a point range, you can have a percent, and you can also have a percent range. My recommendation is to do points. Points are the easiest thing that you can do. And if you are measuring a percentage, you can always put that as your secondary display in your grade center. So I recommend doing the points and then adding the percentage or what the total percentage is for that assignment in your grade center or on the assignment later, because the points are easier to add than, say, your percentage, especially if you have like an assignment that's worth maybe 15 points, then you could just, make that as your 100 in your grade center later on. So we're going to pick points. Now, since we're doing an essay, what are some categories that you guys would measure on an essay? Obviously, grammar is one of them because it's already there. I think organization and formatting would be good. Give me another category or criteria that you think would be important. Spelling, okay. So right here, we're going to change new row 4 to spelling. To change the label of your criteria, click the little down arrow. So I see a couple things. Spelling, substance. I like substance, comprehension. Okay. I think some of those would fall under grammar. So we're going to put spelling here, though. And we are going to click edit. So all you have to do, we're going to put spelling and save. Now, what if you don't want to use novice, competent, or proficient? What if you, oh, someone said reference use. Okay, so I'll add a row for that one. All right, so usually for your levels of achievement, and this is that's what this is called, your levels of achievement are those areas at the top of the columns. I personally like to use exceeds expectation, meets expectation, and fails to meet expectations. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. I'm going to go and put exceeds, meets, fails to meet. Oh, but I don't like that order. I wish there was a way that I could change the order. Guess what? There is. So if you do not like, say you decide that instead of going fails to meet at the left and you want them to go left to right instead, you can actually change the order at the top where you'll see where it says levels of achievement. You can actually select this button and you can, what you do is you'll either select a button and then click the arrow and move it over, or you can just reverse the order completely. I already moved fails to meet. I'm just going to move meets to the middle, click submit, and then it'll switch it for you. So your points can, like your totals can get tricky. Sometimes there's some trial and error in seeing what's going to add and what's not, but the beauty is that it's going to add it for you. So you don't need a calculator to try and determine what everything is. As soon as you start putting in points, it's going to start tabulating everything for you. Because your total points are, your max points are generally going to be your exceeds expectations, I will usually start putting my numbers in the exceeds column, so that way I can have my max points already added. Then when I determine what is basically the threshold for your meets expectations, what is the lowest score that they can get in order to pass, then you're going to have those points in the middle. So you want to make sure that when you start adding all your points that those meet whatever, you know, your at least score is. So if someone has to at least score a 70% to get be able to pass an assignment, you want your middle column or your meets column to calculate or tabulate up to that total. So if we are going to be doing, so we have 5 rows, like, yeah, 5 rows. So if we need to total up to 100 points, so that would be 20 points here, 20 points here, 20 points here. Now, if you look in the bottom corner, does everybody see how it just was adding it up as I started typing in? So your total points is going to be the total of your exceeds or your highest column. So whatever your exceeds expectations column is the total that it is going to show at your total points, because that's showing the max points that the students can get for the assignment. So for your meets column, again, remember it has to equal out to, if they were to get just all meets, then they should get roughly a 70. So that's going to take some math. I don't have time to add right now. So, but really this is what I wanted to show you, how you can go through and adjust your points. If you're doing something that's like 15 points or something that's lower, sometimes it takes a little bit more fudging your numbers. Oh, 14? Is that what the total is? You have to tell me what, so it would be 14 for each? Someone actually got their calculator out. It's not going to change if you look. I'm adding this. You'll notice that the total points don't change. All right, and then fails to meet, I usually leave those as zeros. you don't do what you're supposed to, you don't get points for it. Now, these boxes are what we call descriptors. So for each of your descriptors, you're going to put a description of what the student has to do in order to meet that level of achievement. So under the formatting criteria, we have to determine what they would need to do for their formatting. So formatted nicely. Of course, you want it to be much more detailed, and that's why I say make sure that you have your instructions written out, because then you can align your criteria to match up with your instructions, and then you're measuring that the students did what you told them to do in the instructions. I hope that makes sense. So your rubric should align with your instructions. That's why I say look up that Rubistar website, because what you can do is you can take the descriptors in those templates that you pull up, and then you can copy and paste them into your rubric here. That way you're not having to write them from scratch, especially if you're kind of new to the rubric writing skill. You're not having to completely rewrite write it if you're not super confident. It'll give you descriptors that you can use. Sometimes you have to adjust them a little based on the assignment that you're using, but it'll at least get you started and give you an idea of how you should word your descriptors as you are creating them. So for grammar, I usually put, for exceeds expectations, I'll usually put, 0 to 5 grammatical errors. And when you are doing your rubrics, make sure it's always good to have some sort of numerical guideline. And that way it does take out that subjectivity, because even with rubrics, there is an opportunity to be a little bit more objective. So you want to try and remove that subjectivity, remove the subjectivity by including some numerical standard within your rubric. So if we say, okay, if they get over 5 grammatical errors, then obviously they're going to be meets expectations, because our meets expectations is probably going to be 6 to 10 grammatical errors that they can get. Anything more is going to be that it fails to meet. But again, that Rubistar, and when I send out the recording, I will send out the full link for the Rubistar for what you can use if you're interested in that. Okay, so once you've put in your descriptors and for all of your criteria, you're then going to click Submit. And if you notice, it's already listed here. So it says essay, and then it'll have the date. So say you have several rubrics that you've created titled the same thing. You can see I have 2 here that are called blogs. I have to determine, okay, so which one is the newest one? That's where having the date helps, because it'll tell you, okay, I created this one on February 29th, 2016. So that will help you kind of keep track of your different versions. Now, let's see. We have all of these different rubrics listed here. So once you've created your rubrics, let's look at how do you attach them to assignments. We have a few people getting kicked out of the system, and it looks like. Okay. So let's go and find an assignment. So this is a fake course that I have that I kind of copied off one of our capstone courses for EIDL, and I like using it because it gives us the opportunity to see what assignments look like and how we can use some of the components. Let's move over here to our blog. We'll actually go into our blog section. So when you're attaching an assignment, you're going to go in and you're going to click Edit. And this is what we call associating a rubric. So if you go to page 3, this is where we're at in your webinar guide. So as you're scrolling down and you're looking at your different assignments, you'll see we have a rubric already attached. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that rubric. If you have a rubric already associated with an assignment and you want to attach a new one, all you have to do is click this little red X to remove the rubric association, and it will remove that rubric from that assignment. So then you're going to go in, you want to add a new rubric. So you're going to select from your list. And I decided I want to add the newest blog rubric. So you're going to click your rubric of your choosing, click Submit. And what I really like about this is, say you already have points in here. Well, you've had points totaled in the rubric that you built. So what it's going to do is it is going to automatically adjust to the number of points in the associated rubric. So you click OK, and you're going to see your blog or the rubric that you attached pop up in this area. The automatic default is that it is not going to show the rubric scores to the students. However, it's always a good idea to allow, unless the rubric has answers in it, to allow the students to see what the criteria is that they need to follow. So in order to change that, you're going to hover over this little picture right here where you see the line through the check mark. And you can either select yes without rubric scores, so they can see the criteria but not the scores, or you can select yes with rubric scores, or you can select that they can see the rubric but not until after the assignment has been graded. And this is always good if you have, say, a rubric attached to a short answer test question. That way they can still see what they were graded on and how it was broken down, but they won't see it until after if there are test question answers within the descriptors or the criteria of the rubric. So for this one though, I'm going to say yes with rubric scores. Now the other things that you're going to see here are you can view the rubric. So if you want to see what the actual criteria and what your rubric looks like from the assignment screen as you're editing it, you can click this button and a little preview will come up and it'll show you what the rubric's going to look like to the students. So this will tell you what the points are for each of the criteria and the levels of achievement, and it'll give you a description of what each of these are. So then you can X out of that. Now the other one is if you want to edit your rubric. So you can click this and it'll open the screen so it'll allow you to edit. One thing that I want to really make sure that you understand is if you are in a course and the rubric has already been used to grade an assignment, it will not let you edit it because that criteria has already been used for one student. It won't let you edit that specific rubric. Okay, so if you look at the rubric, it hasn't been used to grade any assignments, so it's going to let us edit it within the assignment even though we've already associated it. So you'll see all the same format as what we saw when we were building our rubric. So if we wanted to change the points, say if we wanted to make it, 30, we could add the, change this to 10. And you see as I change the numbers, it changes it for me. Change this to 10. And the total points will increase. Click Submit. So you make sure that you know that they're changing the points. And it'll also change the points possible for the assignment. Click Submit, and then your rubric is attached to that assignment. All right, so that is associating your rubric, and we also looked at how to edit it within that area. Now, what if you're not sure which assignments your rubric is attached to? You can actually go back down to Rubrics, and if you look at your little down arrow, you're going to click that. You're going to click View Associated Content. And then this will tell you which assignment that rubric is associated with. So if we go over and click on this actual assignment, it will show you the actual assignment itself and how that rubric is attached. The nice thing about this too, though, is if you click on it and you want to change the rubric, you can do it right from this screen. Now, you probably saw that and if you look in your webinar guide, it'll walk you through your different options. And one of the options is that you can create from an existing rubric. Like if, say, you have a template, you can create from an existing rubric. So you can choose a rubric that you already have in your rubric library, and then you can edit it right there. Or you can create a new rubric from the assignment screen. I don't recommend that because creating rubrics take a lot of time, and it's nice to have that library of rubrics because it gives you a little bit more flexibility within that screen, and then go and attach and detach them from assignments as you see fit. And I mean, that's just my personal preference, and you're going to find what works for you as you're going through this process. My recommendation is to create your library of rubrics that you can pull from as you are creating your assignments and attaching your assignments within your content area. All right, so managing rubrics. We already actually went through that because we talked about associating rubrics. We talked about editing rubrics. So what if you have a rubric, or you have a rubric in another course, and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I have this awesome rubric that would be great for this course, but I don't want to really rewrite it. I wonder if there's a way if I can pull from the other one. Someone is just asking. Okay, so before I give you that answer, someone asked, is there a repository of AETC rubrics, maybe, as we call ourselves, CAD-D now? Do we have rubrics or a way to share them? That's a really good question that I don't have an answer to right now, but you're giving me some ideas that I might be able to figure out. What I can do is, if you are not yet part of our AETC Blackboard team or community, what I can do is a lot of our rubrics that I've created for like IDLE and AOL, I've already kind of converted them into Word documents, so I could probably put those into the files on that group, and I can upload them. And if anyone else has rubrics, maybe we can kind of start our own little rubric repository that we can peruse. So I like that idea about pooling rubrics from different courses that we can utilize and share with each other. I love that idea too. Is anyone else loving that idea? Anyone else? Give me an applause if you like that idea. No one's applauding that idea. Repository. Okay, we got a couple of applause. I really like that idea too. We got a play on words here. Okay, awesome. Some applause. I really like that idea. See, this is what happens when we have our webinars. And it's recording for posterity too. All right, so final thing that we'll do. I'm going to go into another course where I know I have a worksheet rubric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my AOL master. And you'll see here's my rubric library of the different rubrics I have for this course. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my worksheet rubric and I'm going to export it. I'm going to export it to my content collection. So when I say I'm going to export it to the content collection, I'm going to export it to the content collection for the course that I want to put it into. I'm going to look for the course I was just in. I wish I had the Jeopardy song right now because it's just being slow. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to look for shop. Oh, I just saw it. And I'm going to click the little, you don't want to click on the title, you want to click on the little radio button next to the folder, and then you'll click submit. It's going to put the course that you're shifting it to, and then you'll click submit. A rubric in Blackboard, but export it for use with an in-resident course if you wanted. Yes, you absolutely could. The only thing is, and be aware, so if you export it, it exports it as a zip file. And so if you unzip that file, a lot of times it's a bunch of code because, I mean, we're essentially coding in a website. So you're going to have to either figure out a way to transport that rubric that you create, a lot of times what I do is I use my snipping tool and I just do a screenshot of it and just post it as a photo. That's the simplest way that you can do it. Export, we have somewhere to store the exported files that we can all access. Yeah, we totally could do that. See, I love that idea. We'll have to talk more about that offline, Mr. Natty. All right, so now you're going to go into your course that we copied that into. And that's not the course that I copied it into. This one is. I thought it was. Okay. And by one. I lost the course. Try this again. We're going to export to our local computer, and I'll show you that way because then I'll at least know where the file is. You're going to download your file. You got to love live demonstrations. They don't always go the way that you want them to. So you're going to see that it's going to say rubric export file. In your zip file, just an FYI, if you were directly sending this to another course, this is the exact title that it would look like as well. All right, so that has been downloaded. Now, when you are exporting it, do not unzip it before you re-upload it. If you unzip it, Mr. Natty is saying exported rubric zip files are not useful outside of Blackboard, even unzipped. So you want to make sure that you keep the file zipped. Do not change the format. You'll then go into the course that you are loading your rubric to. And this is where you select import rubric. So you'll browse your computer, or if you know that you're going to browse your content collection. I've also done this where I've say you zip it into your content collection and you want to pull it into your course, you can search for it in the content collection directly as well. You're then going to browse your computer because we know we loaded it. I'm going to go to the Blackboard series. I know where my rubric is. I'm going to keep it in the zipped format. Click open. You'll see the file. You want to make sure that that file pops up. Click submit. This is all okay. This is just telling you everything that happened in the process. Click OK. And then you'll see that the worksheet rubric was imported and it's now in my list. Now, if you open it, say you open it or edit it, we'll edit it. It'll open up and it's already got all of your information in it. You don't have to redo anything. The nice thing about this too, though, is that maybe you have a rubric and you know it overall it would meet your needs, but maybe there's a few things like in the verbiage, like in the words that maybe you need to adjust based on the assignment. You can still go in and edit it to meet your needs. One last thing that I'm going to show you before we close out is, say you have a rubric that you really, really like, but you don't necessarily want to mess with the one that's already created, or if maybe you have 2 blogs, but the rubric that you have for one blog isn't quite right, or there's something you need to add to that rubric in order to ensure that you're measuring what you need to measure for an assignment-specific requirements. So you're not having to totally reinvent the wheel. You can take an existing rubric. We'll take our essay rubric again. You're going to click the box next to it, and you're going to click the button that says Copy or Append Rubric. Once you do that, it's literally going to just copy. Okay, that's not what it should have done. Let's try this again. So to copy your rubric, don't hit that button. Instead, come to this menu and hit Copy. And it'll make a copy of that rubric. The nice thing is that what it'll do is it'll have copy of in front of the rubric that you just copied, so you know which is the copy and which is the original. And then of course you'll be able to edit the title of that rubric so you can differentiate between the copied one and the original one. And then you would just go in and edit this just as you can edit any of your other rubrics. Okay, so that is actually all I have for you. Rubrics are not, they seem a little bit scary and a little bit intimidating, but when you get down to it, this is actually a pretty amazing tool that you can utilize in your online courses. Also, if you are starting to transition your in-resident curriculum and to house it in Blackboard, I'm finding that especially courses that have a lot of performance blocks, this has been very useful because you can actually transition your checklists into your rubric tool. And it allows you to grade assignments and have students upload assignments into the Blackboard platform rather than having to email back and forth, rather than, trying to manipulate documents and windows. You can have it all in one place, because once you attach that rubric to the assignment, it's then going to pull up the rubric in inline grading. And when you open up the assignment in the Grade Center, everything is right there, right in one nice little package. Now, for sake of time, I'm not going to be able to go into grading with the rubric. That's actually going to be our March session. But I can tell you that once you do that association that I showed you, it will now enable you to pull down the rubric and open it up so you can have your assignment and the rubric right next to it when it comes time for grading. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out my screen sharing. Do any of you have questions before we go ahead and end this session? Grading with rubrics rocks from the instructor perspective. Yes, it does. Using rubrics makes things so much easier, because even from an instructor perspective, if you're not sure what to grade, a really well-written and detailed rubric will allow you to go down the line and say, okay, did they do this? Yes. Okay, I'm going to give them full points. Did they do this? Yes, I'm going to give them full points. Your instructors still need to understand and be familiar with the content, but this allows them to know what they're looking for when they're going through grading to ensure that they're meeting the requirements of the assignment. I love that comment. Any other questions before we close out? As always, this session has been recorded. I'm going to edit it. So all of the bumps we went through when we were kicked out of the session, I will go ahead and edit that, and then I will send the link out to where it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. And I will forward that. I'll send out the Rubistar. I will actually start compiling a list of rubrics, and we'll post that into our Blackboard community in Teams. And the beauty of Teams is that it does have a wiki option, so if we start collaborating, you all can start adding things in there as well. So thank you. As always, I've really enjoyed having you all, and I will see you next month. Bye.